Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 City Council regular business meeting to order. This evening, we have everyone with us, it looks like, except for Councilmember Kirsten Hayatopoulos. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Christine Brown, City Clerk. Please state for the record if you are present after I call your name. Mayor Matthews.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Quitsland.
Present.
Councilmember Dietz.
Present.
Councilmember Fantmore Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Morawaki.
Present.
Councilmember Schneider.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in addition to our City Clerk, Christine Brown, this evening, we also have with us City Manager Blair King, as well as our City Attorney, James Haney. Would we please say the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And now I'm going to do a Suquamish land acknowledgement. Every part of the soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Seattle, 1854. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the ancestral territory of the Suquab, people of clear saltwater, Suquamish people, ex-German canoe builders and basket weavers. The Suquab live in harmony with lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquab live and protect the lands and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Okay. Next, we will move to approve our agenda. Councilmember Morawaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. I move to approve the business meeting agenda as
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I totally we had it, sorry about that. Just a little friendly amendment. We had a proclamation that was added for education and learning. Yes. So I move to, so can you just?
Yeah, I made the motion. I will move to amend it to include the proclamation for Education and Sharing Day.
Perfect.
So it's amended.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Nay. All right. With that, are there any conflicts of interest this evening? Nope. Seeing none, we'll move on to the first items on our agenda this evening, our presentations. And we'll start with the first, and we will add education and learning right before Poet Laureate. Okay. Our first proclamation is declaring April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Councilmember Morawaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. Proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring the month of April 2025 Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas in 2001, Washington State's Rape Awareness Week and other national practices of Sexual Assault Awareness Week expanded to a Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which was officially declared to be in the month of April by President Obama in 2009. And whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month aims to raise public awareness about sexual assault and educate communities about how to prevent it. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, nationally, almost half of all women and almost 1 in 3 men experience sexual assault in their lifetime. At least 1 in 4 girls and as many as 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before turning 18 years old. And at least half of the 2S LGBTQ plus community are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. And whereas sexual assault remains one of the most prevalent yet underreported crimes in the United States. And whereas, while great strides have been made in raising awareness, establishing state and federal funding for, and improving public policies responding to sexual awareness and abuse, in Washington State and in Kitsap County, communities continue to struggle with the myths and harms perpetuated by systematic sexism, racism, and oppression, resulting in sexual assault and abuse. And whereas continued and increased polarization and investment of our sexual assault and abuse awareness is critical to dismantling the causes of sexual violence, and whereas the City of Bainbridge Island is committed to taking a firm stand against sexual assault, eliminating this and other acts of violence that threaten the safety and welfare of all individuals, children, and families, and supporting survivors. Now, therefore, on behalf of Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of my colleagues on the City Council, declare the month of April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Bainbridge Island, and join advocates and communities across the country in taking action to prevent sexual assault, and remind ourselves that each day of the year is an opportunity to create change for the future. And receiving tonight's proclamation are students and advisors, Students Against Sexual Assault from Bainbridge Island High School, and Stephanie Sachs, Clinical Director of Rebuilding Hope. So if you would all come forward.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. My name is Kieran Casper. I'm co-president of Students Against Sexual Assault at BHS. I'm here on behalf of all of our officers and club members. We're so grateful to be receiving this community-wide recognition. SASA was started by a group of students interested in changing the way our community and campus views sexual assault and rape culture. Our goal is to teach students and staff about consent and healthy relationships while creating a safe space for students to promote the general welfare of the BHS community. We have also worked on larger scale projects, such as fundraising for outside organizations. For Sexual Assault Awareness Month this year, we are doing a donation drive for the Grateful Garment Project. Thank you again for this recognition. We appreciate the city's commitment to promoting sexual violence prevention. These efforts benefit the safety of everyone in our community.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to present a proclamation declaring April, oh, sorry. Yes.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So sorry. So thank you, Mayor Matthews, Deputy Mayor Quitzland, and all the council members for supporting this important proclamation today. Establishing a month in honor of sexual assault awareness is of itself an indicator that our community and the world is not what it ought to be, not yet. My name is Stephanie Sachs, and I've served with Rebuilding Hope, the Sexual Assault Center, as clinical director for 31 years. We know that a sexual assault occurs every 3 hours in Washington state, and a survey of Washingtonians found that 61% of women and 34% of men have experienced sexual violence during their lifetime. Sexual assault and its devastating effects are rippling throughout our community every day, across schools and workplaces, in families and homes, in our military and in our neighborhoods, and across our social media. They are the local youth calling our helpline anonymously to ask questions, whether they're nervous or afraid to ask adults. They're the panicking parents calling in a whisper after their kids have gone to bed, trying to figure out what to do to protect them. They're the survivor who was just assaulted, reaching out with courage, not knowing where to go or what to do. It's an 80-year-old reaching out to share for the first time what happened to them when they were a child. It's a spouse of a survivor reaching out in crisis because they don't know how to support the person they love. For 50 years, Rebuilding Hope has faithfully answered the calls from survivors and communities across Pierce County. And since 2024, we've been hard at work bringing crisis support, 24/7 survivor advocacy, and trauma therapy to the residents of Kitsap County impacted by sexual assault and abuse. Since last year, Rebuilding Hope has served over 400 members of the Kitsap community to listen, to learn, to inform, to catalyze change, and so often just to believe, to sit with the survivor, to bear witness to their experience and their journey, to assure them they are believed, they are supported, that this burden never should have been and is not theirs to bear, at least not alone. I'm here today to accept this proclamation and to remain hopeful that each of us stands together in support of that vision to end sexual violence and with a commitment to take action. Thank you for taking action today by presenting this proclamation that both raises awareness about sexual assault and its impact and raises awareness about critical services available in our community. Together, we can do a better job of creating a safe, protective, and supportive community. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for the proclamation.
Thank you. Now we're on to present proclamation declaring April 20th to 26th as National Volunteer Week on Bainbridge Island.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island declaring April 20th to 26th, 2025 as National Volunteer Week on Bainbridge Island. Whereas the individuals, groups, and government that together form our community are at the center of our social life, and whereas the volunteers in a community can inspire, equip, and mobilize others to take action that changes the world. And whereas the giving of oneself in service to others empowers the giver and the recipient. And whereas experience teaches us that effective government requires and benefits greatly by volunteer support and involvement. And whereas experience also teaches us that government alone cannot solve all of our social problems, nor can it reasonably energize all of the many organizations and activities that combine to build a vibrant community. And whereas our island's volunteer force is a great treasure. Whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive community and nation. And whereas during the week of April 20th to 26th, 2025, volunteers all over the nation will be recognized for their commitment to service, the observation of National Volunteer Week. And whereas the city will recognize the service of its volunteers this year at a special event on May 7th. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 20th to 26th, 2025 as National Volunteer Week on Bainbridge Island. And I'll be presenting this to Lauren Blast, the Executive Director of Bainbridge Prepares.
Thank you, Council. I'm honored to accept this award. So a little bit more about me. I wear a few hats in the community, but the ones that I'm most known for, I'm the Executive Director of Bainbridge Repairs, which is fortunate enough to have over 730 credentialed emergency volunteers that we share with the City of Bainbridge and the Bainbridge Island Fire Department. I also, until about a month or two ago, was a board officer for One Call for All. And on using those two hats alone, I see and have seen just how amazing the volunteer spirit is on Bainbridge Island. One Call for All has under its umbrella over 120 nonprofits that they support. And so I've seen everything from the parent that coaches volunteers at a youth coach for a soccer team every Saturday, to somebody selling garden tools at the Rotary auction every July, or it could be someone that is doing the beach cleanup every September with Sustainable Bainbridge, or could be somebody that serves on one of the many COBE committees, such as the Ethics Board or the Climate Action Board, or many others. And so those 120 plus nonprofits and thousands of volunteers are part of what make Bainbridge Island special. And so for anybody that's listening, it's either in the audience or watching online, If you're looking to volunteer a little bit more, don't hesitate to reach out because there is a spot for you to make this island a wonderful place to be. So thank you very much for the board.
Thank you. Next, we're going to present a proclamation declaring May 11th through 17th as Bainbridge Island Police Week. Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, recognizing May 11th through the 17th, 2025 as Bainbridge Island Police Week to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as National Police Week. And whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Bainbridge Island Police Department. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, whose names are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. And whereas the Bainbridge Island City Council wishes to honor the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty by formally designating May the 11th to the 17th, 2025 as Police Week in the city of Bainbridge Island to publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 11 to 17 as 2025 as Bainbridge Island Police Week and encourage all residents to join me in this special observance, dated and signed the 22nd day of April, 2025. And I will be presenting this to Police Chief Joe Clark.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Joe Clark, Chief of Police. National Week is a time for us to reflect on lives lost in service to our communities. Here in Kitsap County, we will honor 8 individuals for their ultimate sacrifice, including our own Officer Kurt Inget, who we lost on April 10th, 2020, during the early days of the pandemic. Police Week also provides us an opportunity to recognize and thank the officers who continue to serve this community with the dedication, professionalism, and commitment that we have come to expect of them. I will tell you, I am impressed by this group of officers that we have here. They continue to impress me with work they do on a daily basis. On May 15th at 3 o'clock, a memorial ceremony for Kitsap County law enforcement will be held at the Miller Woodlawn Memorial Park in Bremerton. This service is open to the public, and I invite all to attend as we pay our respects and honor those who have given us so much. Thank you.
Next is a proclamation declaring May 2025 as Building Safety Month. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring May 2025 as Building Safety Month. Whereas our city is committed to recognizing that everyone in our community depends on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as snowstorms, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes, the impact of climate change, and the increasing frequency and severity of natural hazard incidents injuring people and damaging property and the environment. These pose significant challenges for our infrastructure. Increasing our energy efficiency plays an important role in keeping Americans safe. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the Washington Association of Building Officials and the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local building code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages us all to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale, and by investing in our infrastructure, modernizing our buildings, and adopting building codes to protect our citizens and be better positioned to withstand extreme natural hazards in the future. Now, therefore, on behalf of Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the Council, I do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month in the City of Bainbridge Island, and encourage our residents to recognize the importance of safe and resilient buildings and the work of our building code officials. And I'll be presenting this to building official Blake Holmes.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Blake Holmes, and I serve as the building official in the Planning and Community Development Department. Today, we honor the critical importance of building safety, a topic that affects every citizen and shapes the very fabric of our community. Building Safety Month is not an event, it's a reminder of our collective responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of all Bainbridge Island residents. Thank you for your commitment to this important cause, and I'm honored to accept this proclamation recognizing May as Building Safety Month in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we're going to present a proclamation for Education and Learning Month. Councilmember Dietz.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews, and I'm very pleased to give proclamation. This is Education and Sharing Day proclamation. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, recognizing April 9th, 2025 as Education and Sharing Day. Whereas the basis for the continuity of any society is education, and in the City of Bainbridge Island, the education of our youth is a priority. Whereas all through providing the possibility of an excellent education for all, we can create hope for a brighter, kinder, and more united and prosperous future in the lives of so many. And whereas such an education can nurture the unity of diverse peoples through encouraging acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of an individual can change the world and usher in an era of global peace. And whereas of all the ethical values which inform our civilization, none is more important than love. Love of wisdom and love of our fellow man. These values are the essence of education at its best. And we should be certain to pass this precious heritage to all young people. And whereas Education and Sharing Day is observed each year, a day to pause and reflect on our responsibility to ensure our youth have the foundation necessary to lead lives rich in purpose and fulfillment through service and good work. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize April 9th, 2025 as Education and Sharing Day in the City of Bainbridge Island and call upon everyone to work together to create a better, brighter, and more hopeful future for all. And accepting this proclamation is Rabbi Mendy Goldschmidt.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mayor Ashley, and all my good friends here at the City Council. It's very special for me to be here and mark together, as we do every year, with all of you, Education and Sharing Day. Education and Sharing Day was marked first by President Jimmy Carter in 1978 and subsequently by Congress and every US president since, celebrating the Lubavitcher Rebbe's birthday. Who was the Rebbe? The Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson of blessed memory, arrived at the shores of this great country in 1941 after escaping persecution in war-torn Europe. In 1950, exactly 75 years ago, just 5 years after the Holocaust, he took leadership of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which has since grown to be one of the largest and fastest growing Jewish organizations in the world. The Rebbe taught his followers that after everything we have experienced in the Holocaust, we shouldn't hunker down or withdraw. Instead, he appreciated the freedom of this country and encouraged his followers to grow in their observance, to be proud of their Judaism, and to reach out and encourage others to do the same. But this proclamation is not about recognizing the Rebbe's work on behalf of the Jewish community. It's something much greater. This proclamation promotes what has been the Rebbe's lifelong effort and mission, an access to quality education for all people in all communities. Moral and ethical education that doesn't just teach how to make a living, but how to live life. One that tells every child they matter, they are sacred, they are important, and their actions matter. An education that values and cherishes each individual positive act and good deed. One that fosters an environment where we look out for each other, care for one another, and together make the world a better and brighter place. In the inspiration of the Rebbe's leadership, we could reflect on how each and every one of us, city council members, those who watch us online, those who are here today with us, how we can ensure the future generations, and even this generation, receive quality education, rich in purpose and fulfillment, and how they know and we know that each and every act in goodness and kindness is important and significant in making this place a better place. May our city serve as a beacon of light for people of all faiths and walks of life. May we all help achieve the goal that America is truly one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to receive a poem from our poet laureate, Michelle Bombardier.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor Ashley, for inviting me to come today, and thank you for your support for the Poet Laureate program. We all know that these are turbulent times. We are seeing in real time in our country what we never thought we would: reductions in democracy, especially aspects of democracy, equity, human rights, laws enforced in a fair and consistent way. How does art, specifically poetry, counter this destabilization? The good news, it does and it can. Poetry pushes against authoritarianism, which is defined by the reduction of democracy, by pushing back against being numb. We feel our experience in a poem. Poetry connects us to our shared humanity. This is the work of poetry. And in this, we build community. The mission of the Poet Laureate program is to build community through poetry. I'm going to read you a poem that speaks to that, a reminder of who we are. This poem is called Despite National Politics. In this town, we do not honk, except in danger of imminent death. Like when my neighbor's car popped its brake and rolled all hey nani down the road. Kids here paint each other's names in giant letters on their street on the night of their high school graduation. They leave, and for years, their parents will drive over their children's names until they fade to rain. At the local grocery, We'll see our child's teacher sniffing cantaloupes in the produce section, or the mayor hauling bags of compost at the nursery. Fun fact, we do not flip anyone off ever. We are polite even when jostling over parking spots. We are terrible at four-way stops. We wait and gesture until no one remembers who was first. In this town, we wave at each other. The hardware sells t-shirts with the zip code blazoned, and the bakery has one that says, "I like toast." When tragedy comes, as it does, we gather in the parking lot of the grocery, where soon somebody who knows something will arrive, as will someone with thermos of coffee and a box of cookies. Every odd year or so, someone's teen will die over a guardrail, or like that one time by a bullet, a drug deal gone bad. We will heap flowers at the flagpole, light candles, tape pictures. Where I live, daffodils line up and down the main road, 2 yellow stripes all spring. We're optimistic that way. No one ever cuts them for themselves. We don't do that. We do cut lilacs and leave them in jelly jars by the mailbox. You can have some if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're on to public comment. Okay. First is Janelle. There you are.
Hello, good evening, Council. My name's Janelle Pereira. I live on Bluff Lane. I have 2 comments to bring up on tonight's agenda. The first is regarding the groundwater management plan first draft peer review. Per the deck provided by Public Works, the scope of the peer review process is vague and not clearly defined. Please confirm this is a full review from data collection and analytic frameworks to conclusions. And please confirm the peer review is approximately a 4-week process. My second comment is regarding affordable housing overlay zone professional analysis, $42,000 fee sought by the city manager, Blair King. Please reject this request. As the city planners and their consultants, EA, had 1.5 to 2 years to research and produce the DEIS, there was not one mention of affordable housing overlay zoning in their 615+ page document. Yet, affordable housing overlay zoning process was researched, created, and adopted by the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts in 2020 and revised in 2023. It has been documented, implemented, and constructed for over 4 years. I contend that city planners in EA had their shot and missed. Please do not give them another chance. I recommend that the Planning Commission leverage the work and lessons learned from Cambridge, Massachusetts, on the affordable housing overlay model and affordable housing overlay design guidelines. This is available in their website, including examples of current projects completed and in process. Perhaps our planning commissioners could set up a Zoom with Cambridge, Massachusetts planners. This would be considerably cheaper than $42,000, and I contend truly beneficial, as it would be based on facts and actual outcomes opposed to hypotheticals. As a reminder, let's concentrate on solving low-income housing, 0 to 60% AMI, which is our biggest gap, not just affordable housing. AHAS will help our community solve this dilemma. We must be bold. This is a creative and fair solution. All AHA's projects, 100% development for 0 to 60% AMI. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jim Halbrook.
Good evening. My name is Jim Halbrook. At the Race Equity Advisory Committee meeting on March 6th, John Quitzlin declared in a discussion regarding the comprehensive plan that our whiteness is part of the problem and we are not facing it. This is a racist statement, and I was surprised that those in attendance, including City Council members Dietz, Fantroy Johnson, Schneider, Race Equity and Inclusion Manager Anshu Wahi, and hired consultant Scott Wynn did not object to the racist statement. I find this language offensive and demand an apology from John Quitzlin and the city of Bainbridge Island. Furthermore, as John Quitzlin has demonstrated antipathy to a large part of his constituency, I suggest he resign his position as city council member. This hateful speech by an elected official condoned by the city of Bainbridge Island is reminiscent of the language used by the most vile and infamous racists of the 20th century, including Orville Faubus, Lester Maddox, Elijah Muhammad, and George Wallace. And like racists of old, hate is not their primary objective. Racist ideology is a weapon elites use to great effect to divide constituencies to achieve their self-serving objectives. Today, the city of Bainbridge Island is using hate speech to stifle opposition to its agenda of population increases and upzones. Citizens are led to believe by city staff, paid consultants, advisory committees, and our elected officials that we have a whiteness problem that can only be overcome by their greedy, self-serving land development schemes. Our municipal government is employing the same disgusting tactics used during the last century. When Martin Luther King Jr. pointed out that racist policies employed by government elites only work because it creates a wedge between natural coalitions of working-class Americans of all races, he was murdered by the very same government. When Fred Hampton built an interracial coalition of working-class citizens, he also became a victim of government violence. The city of Bainbridge Island leadership understands very well that this good liberal community can be shamed because of their whiteness. Our municipal government has very cleverly employed a strategy of labeling opposition to their self-serving agenda as a whiteness problem, or that white people think they know. If you object to increasing the island's population by 50%, threatening the viability of our sole source aquifer, are you part of the whiteness problem? Are you a white racist if you object to 6-story buildings along High School Road? And what are you if you object to raising the Suzuki Forest for high-density housing? I denounce the hate speech and racist agenda of the city of Bainbridge Island.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Neal.
Hi, Council. It's Lisa Neal. I'm a resident of Bainbridge Island. First, I want to approve the last speaker's points. I have personally had my speech denigrated based on my race in separate incidents by a former planning commissioner, an ethics board member, and a REAC member in separate incidents. I complained to the council each time, but nothing was done. Recently, the paper reported that a council member claims that white people think they know everything. You represent all of us, and if you hold the opinion that white people should be ignored, you should step down. There's no room on Bainbridge Island for hate speech. Second, I repeat that having so many substantive items on the consent agenda that have not been discussed before make it impossible for us and for you, most likely, to digest, raise concerns, and obtain answers about issues before you vote. My husband, Chris, wrote you an extensive email recently asking you to take your power back from the city manager, but not one of you responded, even to counter his assessment or to explain anything, assuming you read his email. The same thing is happening with Kobe's attempted takeover of our garbage service. It is plain that justifications for this takeover are being discussed in executive session. These discussions, in my opinion, have violated the Open Public Meetings Act. Frankly, I anticipate we will have a contract with Bainbridge Disposal or an ordinance putting Bainbridge Disposal out of business on a consent agenda soon. You could discuss these things and other issues in open meetings, but also on the consent agenda today is canceling the next study session. As I've mentioned to you before, if you truly have no business to conduct on one of the regularly scheduled meeting dates, you could hold a town hall. You could talk to your constituents, you could hear what their questions are, and you could answer their questions. The fact that you don't do this indicates that you are not interested in hearing from us. I have a couple of specific questions about the agenda tonight in my last minute. Who's paying for the $6 million in sewer plant upgrades? I know it's us, but I mean, is it one on the island or only those who use the sewer plant? You should know this before approving the cost. My second single point is the police station project already looks to cost us more than we agreed to. I sent you an email about that today with a bunch of questions that I've not been able to get an answer about from anyone. Where's the $3 million that we're paying coming from? What is the $5 million we need Senator Cantwell to obtain from the federal government? It looks like the project's already out of control. So I hope you let the community know tonight exactly where all this money's coming from and how you're doing it. I'm out of time, just about. But I have to say, you guys are paid $3,000 a month. If you took a little less time for proclamations and poetry, or stop canceling your meetings, you could hold town halls and you could meet with your constituents and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ron Peltier.
Good evening, council members, City Manager King, City Attorney. Hope you're all doing well tonight. I want to talk about the city's core values a bit. My favorite, one of the core values is honesty and truth-telling. And as we know, that is a cornerstone of democracy, and we're seeing that violated every day with our federal government. Unfortunately, we're seeing some of that as well in the city of Bainbridge Island. And I'm referring to the disinformation campaign that's been going on for the last 2 years, accompanying the comprehensive plan update process. That's revolved around House Bill 1220 that the city says is a growth mandate. House Bill 1220 is a piece of legislation that amends and is implemented by the Growth Management Act. It is one of many requirements and goals that are in the Growth Management Act, including protection of groundwater, the protection of the environment in general, anti-displacement measures, planning for the overall reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and I'm sure I've left a couple things out, but there's a number of requirements and goals, and they're not necessarily compatible. The Growth Management Act itself has a section that speaks to this and how local jurisdictions should be allowed to balance those different requirements and goals. This is RCW 3670A 3201, Growth Management Hearings Board, legislative intent and findings. In recognition of the broad range of discretion that may be exercised by counties and cities, consistent with the requirements of this chapter, the legislature intends for the board to grant deference to counties and cities in how they plan for growth, consistent with the requirements and goals of this chapter. Local comprehensive plans and development regulations require counties and cities to balance priorities and options for action in full consideration of local circumstances. The legislature finds that while this chapter requires local planning to take place within a framework of state goals and requirements, the ultimate burden and responsibility for planning, harmonizing the planning goals of this chapter and implementing a county or city's future rests with that community. Does it sound to you like there's a growth mandate in the Growth Management Act? The city has continually repeated that. It's like brainwashing the public. I have a simple request of the city of Bainbridge Island and its officials and its staff. Please follow your own core value of honesty and truth-telling. I don't think it's too much to ask. Thank you for listening and have a great meeting.
Thank you. Next is Melanie Keenan, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Keenan. I'm a longtime resident of Bainbridge Island. I want to congratulate you for releasing the draft groundwater management plan and groundwater model update on April 18th after 6 years plus. I sent council an email with the following information I'd like to share with you this evening. As a volunteer member of the Groundwater Management Plan Subcommittee, I'm requesting more time to review and comment on the draft groundwater management plan, 171 pages, and the groundwater model update, 86 pages, more than the preliminary schedule for 2 weeks. So a customary professional standard would be 3 to 4 weeks. I want to emphasize the importance of a proper fundamental science practice peer review process for the draft and the final groundwater management plan and model updates. 3, the importance of public stakeholder input and completing the final groundwater management plan before finalizing the comp plan update. I want to call to your attention after preliminary review of the groundwater model update, the unsustainable drawdown in the Deep Fletcher Bay aquifer documented in the first draft groundwater model update reporting on pages 23 and 28 with simulated moderate and high growth scenarios. Using the preferred alternative for 11,500 people for the high growth scenario based on EA consultant draft environmental impact statement, DEIS, alternatives 2 and 3, which is more than double the Growth Management Act allocation of 4,524 for Bainbridge in the next 20-year planning horizon. It is important, there's a lot of discussion about the communication between Kitsap Peninsula and Bainbridge. It is important to understand the difference between similarities in regional geology of Bainbridge Island and the Kitsap Peninsula versus connectivity of the deep aquifers, Glacial Marine, Fletcher Bay. Per the USGS 2011 groundwater flow study on page 68, referenced in the groundwater management plan, the flow from Kitsap is slightly more than 5%. Thus, approximately 95% of aquifer recharge is island-based from precipitation and a small amount from septic system returns. So there's no magic river feeding Bainbridge Island coming from Kitsap. With maximum growth and development on Kitsap and Bainbridge, the current infraction of groundwater in the deep aquifer from Kitsap Peninsula to Bainbridge could potentially reverse. This was discussed in the USGS report. So because Bainbridge relies on sole source aquifer system and is also reliant on precipitation for aquifer recharge, it is important to understand the best available science to sustainably balance growth and adequately protect critical aquifer recharge areas on the island per the Growth Management Act requirements to provide for adequate quality and quantity of water for existing residents, future generations. Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. And then next is Malcolm Gander.
Thank you. Malcolm Gander, Rolling Bay. I wanted to first say thank you to Blair and City Council for going ahead and giving the green light for a public meeting for all islanders for the draft groundwater management plan. So next, I wanted to amplify on something Melanie was talking about. We moved here over 20 years ago and we started to get involved with the water supply and groundwater soon after, but we've been listening for many years to this idea that groundwater, significant groundwater, is flowing from the Kitsap Peninsula to Bainbridge Island and that it's a significant source of drinking water. It's not. There's empirical evidence to back that up. The city of Bainbridge Island hired the USGS to do a model. The model is based on hundreds of well data. There's only a little more than 5% of inflow of groundwater flowing from the west, from Kitsap Peninsula under Bainbridge, into the aquifers that we have a bunch of wells in. That means well over 90% of our drinking water is from rainwater that falls on Bainbridge and infiltrates into the aquifers that are underneath us. So we're responsible for managing that. It's not like we have this constant flow of, like some kind of backup or safeguard. It's really important. This is going to come up again because I'm going to give you an example. In January, our consultant was up there on that screen and he said, yeah, there's input from Kitsap Peninsula, but he didn't add that it's only a little more at best, a little more than 5%. So we want to get the facts straight. We want to use facts that are referenced in peer-reviewed references, peer-reviewed journals. We last updated the comp plan over 10 years, or something like 9 or 10 years ago. So now we're updating it again. The Planning Commission is doing a lot of work on it. Staff is, Utility Advisory Committee. We need to have a public process. We need to have an island-wide meeting, just like we're going to have for the draft groundwater management plan. We did that 8 or 9 years ago during the last process. We haven't done that at all. We really need that so we can see what these stakeholders are doing. And then once it's all assembled and we have a draft, we can have a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last person I have signed up. Is there anyone here who did not get a chance to sign up who wants to speak? Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Marlon Alexander Marshall Lloyd, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Male Black Voters. I am here on behalf of the Kitsap Juneteenth Freedom Festival to request the board's support for our annual Juneteenth celebration. This year, the celebration is being held on Saturday, June 14th, 2025 at the Evergreen Park. The Freedom March begins at 10 a.m. at the Norm Dix Building and ends at the park. For 23 years, the Kitsap Juneteenth Festival has been a vital part of our community. It's celebrating the Black culture, resilience, and the emancipation of enslaved Black African Americans. Now recognized as a federal holiday, the Juneteenth is a time for reflection, education, and unity. Yet despite its significance, our festival has largely been self-funded, while other major local events such as Pride, Blackberry Festival, Armed Forces Day receive substantial financial backing. In light of these strenuous times, this support is more important than ever. We ask the board to consider ways to contribute in addition to financial support. We welcome opportunities for the board to participate. The following are ways the city can participate: advertise in a commemorative annual booklet, agree to attend the festival, present a proclamation, or any combination of the above. Your support would ensure that Juneteenth continues to thrive as a vibrant and inclusive celebration for Kitsap County and the community. We appreciate your time and consideration. We look forward to working together. We will follow with an email and answer any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. And we don't have anyone on Zoom. Okay, with that, public comment is closed. Thanks, everyone. All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Councilmember Moriwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. I move approval of the consent agenda as presented in. Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Moriwaki, seconded by Deputy Mayor Quitsland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And with that, we move on to council announcements. Okay, Councilmember Moriwaki and then Councilmember Deets.
Jumped in, sure. I had the pleasure of being invited by the principal of Sakai Intermediate School to join his faculty and members of the Japanese American community to their little cherry blossom festival. If you haven't been to their site, it's a gigantic kind of bonsai type cherry tree, full big pink blossoms, and they come out, all fifth graders and sixth graders come out and they have lunch underneath the tree, and we joined them. and they celebrate it. It's a really lovely tradition they have. And the children then make cards and share those throughout different places in the community celebrating cherry blossoms.
That's really nice. Councilmember Deeps.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. And just a couple things. I had just quickly, I had my office hours last Saturday. I usually do, and had a number of folks, including a member of the audience, who said that we don't meet with constituents. So I met with her. So just saying. Today was the West Sound Partners for Ecosystem Recovery meeting. I'm on the executive board. This is a regional body. It's actually bigger than Kitsap County. It includes Pierce County, Kitsap County, Pierce County, a number of cities, including Gig Harbor, Port Orchard, Bremerton, Poulsbo, Bainbridge Island, and the tribes. And basically, it's commonly called WHISPER. Sorry, and what does WHISPER do? Is they're the lead entity for salmon recovery in the West Sound. So today's meeting, we had a presentation on Kitsap County sea level rise, which kind of mirrors the presentation that we saw for our island. We had a legislative update, which unfortunately there's a lot of budget cuts proposed in natural resources. And lastly, there's some leadership in the committee were chosen. Suquamish Chairman Leonard Forsman was made chair and I was made vice chair. So that is my report.
Thank you. And that looks like, okay. Oh, Deputy Mayor.
I just want to mention something that will happen on Thursday. Meeting of the Planning Commission. It's scheduled between 6 and 10 p.m. Nobody needs to stay unless they have a duty there, but it's going to be an important one of several important meetings in which the Planning Commission carefully considers the work of defining the preferred alternative going forward for the Winslow sub-area plan. And we'll be hearing some more about that work and the comprehensive plan work a little later in the agenda. But I just wanted to call that to the attention of people who may be watching this and interested in our progress toward conclusion of difficult responsibilities.
Thank you. I got to go to a bill signing last Wednesday, I believe it was. Governor Ferguson proclaimed last Wednesday as Bull Kelp Day, and he gave the proclamation as well as designated Washingtonian of the Day to one of our Bainbridge Island seniors, Sebastian Ford. So it was a really special day. Got to spend some time with everyone there, and that's all I have. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to, so May is coming up quickly, and that tends to be a month where everybody kind of gets back to cycling. And in fact, Wednesday, May 7th is National Bike and Roll to School Day. And I was there last year, and it was definitely a fun morning for all. Starts kind of early, but so does school.
Thank you. Okay, city manager's report. Okay, thank you, city manager. Next, we are on to our regular business. Okay, first item is presenting the groundwater management plan first draft.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening, it's our opportunity to announce the release of the groundwater management plan, which we are taking this occasion of the council meeting to do. We want to review with you the public review timeline that we have to allow people to review and comment upon the groundwater management plan. We want to emphasize that this is the first draft, and we do anticipate a subsequent drafts to follow. Chris Vicky is going to talk a little bit about that review process. So then, probably more importantly, we want to review with you too a peer review services, what we've been able to find, and provide a budget allocation to proceed with a peer review. With that, Mr. Vicky will go ahead and again announce the release and describe the public review process.
Good evening, Council. Chris Rusbicki, Public Works Director. Nice to see you this evening. As the City Manager mentioned, we're going to briefly give you an overview of the public review process for the Groundwater Management Plan. Our agenda includes just some very brief background about the plan, as well as an overview of the review and public engagement schedule. We'll give you a little bit of information about some peer review options and allow you some discussion on those items. So as you probably recall, we've talked about the groundwater management plan in several briefings in previous meetings, but it consists of 3 parts: documenting the city's groundwater conditions, modeling future stresses and resulting impacts on groundwater, and recommending strategies to mitigate those impacts on groundwater. We are not going to get into the details of the plan today, but we will have plenty of opportunities to do so, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about how we're going to roll that out. Next steps in the plan include what we're talking about here tonight, which is our public engagement and adoption plan. And then future steps will include strategizing about the implementation and funding, as well as regular updates of the plan every 5 to 6 years. So a couple of terms before we talk about the schedule, just so we're all on the same page. We have divided this plan up into basically 3 segments, 3 phases. The first is a first draft. That is a kind of a rough cut of the groundwater management plan that is available today on the city's website via what's called the Engage Bainbridge site. This plan will have the opportunity to be reviewed by the city's committees, the Technical Advisory Committee, which includes agency stakeholders from the region, and also the Groundwater Subcommittee, which includes members of the Utility Advisory Committee, the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee, and the Climate Change Action Committee. After that, we'll be developing a second draft, which is a more refined document, which will go through a full engagement process, including a public engagement meeting. And we'll talk about that schedule for that as well. And then we'll have a final, which will be available for your tentative and final adoption at the end of the process. So this is what the schedule looks like, just kind of following the stars through the schedule here. We are at the first star there, presenting the first draft today to you. We'll be reviewing with committees and responding to their comments over the next month and delivering that second draft, the refined document, in about a month from now. After that, we'll have another review period with the general public. As you can see, kind of right in the middle of the schedule there, we're having a public outreach meeting on June 9th, and we'll have more details forthcoming about that meeting. We will close the comment period around the end of June, concurrently perform the peer review, and have a final plan available around the end of July for adoption in August. At your meeting in February, the City Council made a motion to perform a peer review of the groundwater management plan, and we have been looking to solicit parties to perform that peer review, although we do not have a formal scope of that peer review yet. As one commenter mentioned, it will be a review of all the technical materials, all the input, as well as the technical memorandum on the modeling component. We solicited input from all the state's universities, University of Washington, Washington State, and Western Washington. Unfortunately, all of the individuals from those universities felt like they were too busy to take on our peer review, although we had several who we had some back and forth correspondence with. The USGS has not responded to us. We also reached out to our Thurston County contact for hydrogeologists there. We had some recommendations from our representative from the Suquamish tribe with some hydrogeologists here on the West Coast. We also did a formal request for qualifications, an RFQ, for environmental and engineering firms to perform the request as well. Of those received, we had interest from Thurston County, as well as both of the recommended hydrogeologists from the Suquamish tribe, Karen Burrow, as well as Keita Waters, which is an engineering consulting firm. We also had one response to our RFQ, which was Anchor QEA. Anchor is the, hope you're not pointing out a spelling error because I try to spell check.
Waters, the name Waters.
Okay, yes. Actually, I think I don't know if that's just a firm name. I think it's a firm name, Keita Waters, like incorporated. Yeah. Yeah, otherwise they'd be a likely choice, right? Anchor QEA is the firm that did our groundwater work related to the wastewater beneficial reuse plan that we presented to you a number of weeks ago. So they are already familiar with some of our conditions here. So they may also be a good choice. And just a little information about peer review. There will be a cost associated with it, and we don't necessarily know what it will be yet. We are anticipating somewhere in the range of 25,000. That would be for the peer review services, as well as for our firm who's developing the groundwater management plan to review the review and perform any updates to the plan that come from that process. We would propose to split that funding between general fund and utilities, as was discussed at your meeting in February. Both the general fund, the water utility, and the storm and surface water fund all benefit from the results of the plan. So it would make sense to fund from those three locations, those three funds. And we would also suggest potentially your consideration of the city council contingency fund for that expenditure. So that said, we are going to kind of leave it up to you for any discussion on the schedule and the peer review. You're also welcome to, if you feel like you want to allow the staff to make a recommendation on the peer review, we're happy to do that. But we wanted to present you the options and allow you to have feedback on that, since it was originally at the council's direction. So thank you for that, and we'll look forward to your discussion. Otherwise, we'll see you again around from now with the second draft of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rusbicki. I'm not seeing any lights. Okay, start us off, Raditz, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews, and thank you for getting this plan. I went ahead and got a hard copy, and I have to say I haven't delved into it other than the water conservation section, because that's of I'll just say particular interest to me. So I look forward to, because that's kind of next, right? Once we get this plan done, then hopefully we will start talking about how do we put in a water conservation program. So glad to see that. I still need to process this for it, but thank you so much for getting this out.
Deputy Mayor.
Just some superficial comments. Over the weekend, I printed out maybe about 50 pages selected as I skimmed through and saw things that were of particular interest to me. It's not a hard thing to read. It's something that deserves close reading, and I made comments along the way. I will probably write up a few things that I think could be passages that could be improved or clarified. But it's not a critique. It's but for clarity and for coherence, I think the more we can do to make it close to perfect, the better. I think it's very thorough, comprehensive. I don't look at it as a scientist. I was pleased that it was written not just for scientists, but for the general reader. And it explains a lot, clarifies many things that you may not have thought about or tried to understand in the past. It's going to be very useful, and it's meant to be revised or re-examined, updated over a period of time, along with the monitoring that will be carried out more and more thoroughly or comprehensively. Let me see if there's anything more I need to say. I believe the members of the council should take the step of recommending two possible peer reviewers. Just to back up, I think the thorough efforts that have been made already to identify people who are interested, that leads me to recommend as a first choice Karen Burrow, and as a second choice the firm Kita Waters. I'll just throw that out and we can make it in the form of a motion as other people chime in or comment further.
Councilmember Fancher Johnson.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to say thank you for doing your due diligence for trying to reach out to as many credible sources as you could. I imagine this just might be a busy time. We'll probably be looking to get who we can get, to look at this, that are people that are impartial. But I just have a feeling that no matter who you get, there's going to be some outcry of some sort. And people have to just remember that we're doing our due diligence and we're doing the best that we can. Nobody's trying to skirt around it. So yeah, thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I'm going to echo that. Thank you for so much for your report and following up with all of this. I was wondering, in the comment, there was a question about the duration of the peer review. And so just wanted to confirm that. And if that changes anything or what, I think 4-week duration was mentioned. Other than that, I did echo the deputy mayor's just in scanning it, the choices there, but I'm not an expert on this. And so I don't know, I think that might be a good idea to give two and you all decide, or give it to the groundwater subcommittee. My concern is that no matter who we choose, there's going to be pushback with someone might say, oh, they want the data to look like this, or they're skewing it. So I think maybe, if possible, the choice should come from we give two choices to the subcommittee or and let them definitely weigh in on the final choice for peer review. So we don't have to go through choose one and then they don't work, because that's going to get expensive and we have limited funds. Yeah, I think that is it for, oh my goodness, my brain, sorry about that tonight. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't remember what I was going to say. Let's see. City manager.
Well, I heard the question, if there was a motion, I think the motion would be, how would you like to direct us with regard to the peer review?
Okay. Councilmember Fantroy Johnson.
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation that's listed in the packet for peer review. Keita Waters and Burrows.
Burrow.
Thank you.
That was my first choice, and I have some confidence.
That's the motion.
Okay. Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Fantroy Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Dietz. All those in favor?
Wait, discuss that, please.
Oh,
May we? Yeah.
Councilmember Morawaki.
Yeah. There were other people who were recommended, right? Just those three? The Anchor QEA and the Thurston County hydrologist, as well as one other person recommended by the tribe, right? But I only heard two names in this motion. So I just want to make sure my thought is, and I agree with, I can't remember who said it, it was Councilmember Fantroy Johnson, that thanks to doing the effort to reach out to all the universities, we're asking a lot of them, especially a lot of them probably wondering if they have a job tomorrow. So they're under their own stress. So let's be sensitive to their plight. So I would, my thought would be all of the qualified people that we can have on board. And also there's a suggestion for a budget item from free sources as well as from our contingency fund, which we have to address as well. So I think this motion by just these two, it's a little bit too limiting for me, and I would rather cast a better and wider net, because that motion would only mean these two people or groups are the only ones considered. So I just want to throw that out to you folks.
Councilmember Fantroy Johnson.
Can we get some clarification on the amount that we're paying? Is it for 2 people or 3 people?
City manager.
Well, so the question is, so we need one person to conduct a peer review. We have, Chris Vicky presented to you a list of people that he contacted. And at the end of the day, we had 4 different firms or organizations that were interested. 2, you have mentioned here as part of the motion, Karen Burrows and Keita Water. Also, there's a hydrologist for Thurston County and also a firm. that would be interested. You certainly can direct us to the two that were mentioned. Then with regard to the budget, we're suggesting that the cost be taken out of 3 different pots to reduce the cost there. Surface store water fund, wastewater fund, and also general fund. If it comes from the general fund, a portion of that, we're suggesting that some of that come from the council contingency, which right now is at $184,000, and none has been spent out of that. The total engagement amount is probably, I think Mr. Vicky said, a little south of 25,000, but we would think it'd be around 25,000. So at 25,000 paid for 3 pots. As the motion was made, we would look at Karen Barrels and Keto Waters but if you want to amend the motion, obviously that would change things. But as the motion was made, those are the 2 first we would look at.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My assumption has been all along that the peer review will come from one person. And if we hire a firm, it will probably be one person as a member of that firm, not another committee from several different places. It's really the work of a single expert, probably experienced in the realm of peer review.
Would you consider amending the motion to include the others?
So I guess what we're saying is we would allow the 2 that was in the motion to be approached and to try to pick one from those 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Morawaki.
Thank you, Mayor. That's fine with me, but
Okay.
I have no idea who they are. I don't know. I'm just we had a 10-minute presentation. And we had reached out to the tribe, who certainly invest a lot of energy in protecting waterlands and it's their natural resource. They submitted 2 individuals, I believe. So, and I don't know who they are. So if this is the council's wish, I'll go for it. But I would be, I'm just concerned because I have absolutely no grounding information or how big these are, how qualified they are, what their reputation are, their abilities. So I'm a little uneasy about all of that, and I would like to have it, the officials in the groundwater management committee or group advisory committee, or maybe the public works, they just do an analysis and assessment of those candidates and give us a recommendation of which they feel might be the best for us. So that's my thought.
So that I think what I'm hearing is that we are in agreement and we will go forward with this motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion is made. We had 6, how many of us are there? 5 yays and 1 nay.
So, Mayor, I just would like clarification. This is what staff will do with regard. We will approach both Karen Burrows and Keto Waters. We obtain their full qualifications. The threshold requirement is that they be a licensed geological hydrologist. That is threshold requirement. Then a qualification-based selection process. We don't necessarily look at fee. We look at who has qualifications, and then we will go ahead and engage them based upon that fee. And also I'm going to interpret that we're going to incorporate a 3-way split for that fee, including a portion of that from the council contingency.
A moment.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Morawaki.
On the last part, the city manager, that should be an official motion. I mean, you can't infer that. We are taking from 3 different sources of our public funds, as well as our own contingency fund. So if that's the wishes, that should be at least a motion to
Would you like
the city manager find the sources or what, but I think we should have that as.
Would you like to make a motion, Councilmember?
I really don't know how to word it because, yeah, it's kind of thrown at us here. So,
Councilmember Fancher Johnson.
I make a motion that we use the resources that's listed in the packet.
Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Fancher Johnson, second by Councilmember Dietz.
Is there a problem with that?
Yeah, there is a problem with that. It's actually broken down into three different city sources. Well, no, general fund, water utility, and storm and surface water fund are three.
Right.
And then 25 additional from the city council.
No, that's
contingency.
from the general
But
fund.
I'm confused by the way this is written.
No, excuse me for the confusion. That's three sources for the 25,000. So a third of that would be from the general fund, which would be the council contingency portion. Another about 8,250, give or take. And I even spoke previously, I said the sewer fund, it's the water utility fund, and then the storm surface fund.
Yeah, I would suggest that the bullet point's incredibly confusing. It has this council budget amendment 25K out on its own without any direct, use of that. I would agree, just so we're clear.
I will clear up. in my
As presented here.
Let me
Good.
clear it up in the
Okay.
motion. I make a motion that we use the funds from the utility and sewer general fund, which part of that will come from the council contingency fund. And then the third source, we use, somebody help me out.
Yeah, the three sources, and let me again apologize if it was unclear. Some people may have suggested the full amount come from the council contingency. I was not recommending that.
No.
I was suggesting that it be split three ways. So the three ways would be storm and surface fund, a water fund, and general fund, which would be the council contingency.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilmember Fancher Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Dietz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And next is on to, thank you, Director Worsbicky. Reviewing the development agreement between the City of Bainbridge Island and Low Income Housing Institute.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start a presentation on this. This is the review of a development agreement, and with the development agreement, it's the companion lease agreement to establish the business relationship between the City of Bainbridge Island and Low Income Housing Institute, or Lehigh. I will point out that Mr. John Grant is here representing Lehigh, and in the audience is here showing waving the flag on behalf of Lehigh, showing their support. What we would like to do with you this evening is talk about the business terms of the development agreement and talk about the lease agreement. We'll have Jim Haney, the city attorney, discuss the major points in the agreements. These are primarily legal agreements, and as you can tell, these, again, it's another thick document. You're not being asked to approve anything tonight. We would just like you to understand the provisions and the terms of this. I want to point out that when I talk, I will be using interchangeably the term development agreement or contract. Development agreement is a contract. And in basic, simple terms, what we're proposing is to enter into a contract with Lehigh. On our end of the deal, we are proposing to provide to them a 1 acre city-owned site for a long-term lease. And it's with $3 million that they will be used to develop the site. What they will provide on their end is that they will be obligated to obtain financing and construct and operate for 75 or 99-year term, an affordable housing project with approximately 90 units mixed between studios and 3-bedroom, approximate cost about $50 million. And do that based upon a schedule that we have presented as a non-binding schedule within the development agreement. That is the basic terms. I want to start off by just providing what I would consider, and I'm calling a map for what we've done and where we're going to go. Real quick little slide here. So for lack of a better term, this is 625 Winslow Way. Right now it consists of 2 parcels, but by the time we assume that the lease agreement is actually executed, it will be 1 parcel. So previously the categorized redevelopment of this site for affordable housing through a series of actions over time. Then the council authorized us to issue a request for qualifications for qualified housing developer. We received about 6 proposals. We're very happy with that response from the affordable housing community. We assembled a committee as presented to the council, and as the council directed. That committee brought back a recommendation to you that we select Low Income Housing Institute. And with that, the council approved a period of exclusive negotiation to develop a development agreement that you have in front of you. Again, this contract. In December, a basic term sheet was approved to go closer to what the expectations were between the two parties. Now we have in front of you the development agreement and the lease proposal. The hope is that we can respond to the council to the questions or concerns that you might have, that would resolve those and you'd be in a position to approve this agreement in May. After the agreement is approved, then Lehigh will have the security to know that they are under contract. We expect them to begin the pre-application process and to begin the actual land entitlement process. In October, we expect the land use application. I want to point out that the land use application needs to be in place in order for Lehigh to apply for the Washington Low Income Housing Tax Credit application, which we anticipate will be in March of 2026. And this is also all within the attachment within the development agreement. After a successful application has been approved for the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, Lehigh will be responsible for closing on the financing and to record the ground lease. The question came up, this does require funding from a variety of different sources. Also within the development agreement is a model of where we believe the financing will be. Housing tax credits, contributions from the state of Washington, possible contributions from the federal government, and also private investors will be required to achieve the $50 million that we're anticipating. We'd anticipate construction will commence in December of 2026. Construction will be completed in October of 28, and then complete occupancy will be in service by June of 29. That is the schedule that we hope to achieve. And with that, I'll turn that over to Jim Haney, and he can describe the provisions of both the development agreement and the lease agreement.
Thank you, City Manager. As the manager said, the purpose of the development agreement is to provide, it's the next step along the road in this roadmap of how you get from the concept of the project to actual occupancy. The development agreement gives Lehigh and the city certainty as the steps moving forward. And in particular, it gives Lehigh the certainty that it has sufficient interest in the land or sufficient contract ability to get the land to enable it to spend money to the project and to apply for financing. The development agreement contains a number of provisions, and I'll just run through a few of the highlights. First of all, it contains a general description of the project, which I think you all know is approximately 90 housing units, and a ground floor community, recreational, or commercial space of approximately 3,200 square feet, and then site amenities. Under the agreement, Lehigh is going to prepare a master development plan for review and approval by the City Council. That master development plan is to be presented to you within 3 months of the date that this agreement is executed. The master development plan is going to give you a site plan. It's going to give you building elevations, and it's going to set forth any required or requested deviations that they would need from the current city regulations and in order to build the project. And we anticipate that there may be requests for additional floor area ratio under the current than what is out into the current code, and also that there may be a request for some height consideration and also some modification of the parking standards. But they will be presenting that to you as part of this master development plan to tell you what it is that they need. The master development plan will also provide you with a more detailed finance plan. There is a financing plan, a tentative plan, which is in the agreement itself. But of course, as you go through the process of financing, those may or may not be the actual dollars used, and the amounts may be different. So it's going to be a more detailed financing plan that you will see as part of this. There is a communications plan that is attached to the agreement as an exhibit. At the time we prepared the agenda bill, the communications plan was still a work in progress, but it's been put forward as a tentative plan at this point to you with the agreement. There is also an obligation to cooperate on seeking the funding for the project. And I've been told there is a commitment from the city for $3 million worth of investment in this project. So that is listed in the current financing plan. The agreement provides that all financing must be secured within 3 years of the date the development agreement is entered into. And that 3 years, as you'll recall, was done because it allows at least 2 funding cycles through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. My understanding is that you apply for that financing in September of a given year, and you're notified as to whether or not you get that financing in December of that year. So if you don't get that financing, then you have to wait again till next September to apply again. And that's why the 3 years is in here, to give an opportunity to do that. And that financing will be an allocation of low-income housing bonds and low-income housing tax credits. So that's the anticipated from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. If funding is not secured after that period of time, the agreement automatically terminates in 3 years unless it is extended. So you could extend it if you think you'll get a better shot at a third time, but at least this gives you 2 times to get through the process. Lehigh is allowed under the agreement to seek some reimbursements for expenditures during the course of the development agreement. Specifically, there are things like surveys, utility capacity studies, traffic studies, and so forth that can be undertaken as the project is designed. And those studies will be useful potentially for the city, even if this project does not move forward, because they may be useful for a subsequent project. The agreement provides that copies of those studies are to be provided to the city, and the city is to be able to obtain rights to use those studies, just as Lehigh has the right to use those studies. There is also a tenant project schedule attached to the development agreement, which the city manager has kind of gone over, but if there's a little more detail in the project schedule, it's an exhibit to the agreement. And finally, the agreement provides that after all of the necessary funding is secured, that what the city will do will be to enter into a ground lease with Lehigh, under which Lehigh will construct the project and operate and maintain it on the site. The term of the ground lease is somewhat in flux and depends upon the financing. What I've been told is that the ground lease needs to be a minimum of 75 years, which is what the tax credit investors will require. But there may also be funding, such as the transit-oriented development funding, which is coming out of the legislature, which may require 99 years. And that's why the term is somewhat in flux in the document. We've provided a minimum of 75, but it could go up to 99 if the funding requires that. The ground lease is attached as an exhibit to the development agreement, so we get a kind of most of the issues relating to the ground lease out of the way now. We know what it's going to be, they know what it's going to be, and we're able to move forward. The lease provides for the allowed use, the use of the project, the approximately 90 units, the community space or non-residential space, and all of the amenities to be the main use on the site. If there is a commercial space ultimately on the site, there are limitations, further limitations on uses, kinds of things that you probably wouldn't want to see as uses there, and they're listed in the document. They are required to get all permits and achieve occupancy of the project by a date which is blank in the lease, because again, we don't know at this point when the financing is going to be approved, and that will then set the construction schedule. So that will be filled in at the time that the financing is completed. There is a provision that provides for the potential to condominiumize the building. And that would be a condominium into a residential unit, which would include all of the 90 multifamily or residential, individual residential units, and the non-residential space. And the reason for doing a condominium would be because the financing for the affordable housing units cannot be used to construct commercial space if that's the way you go. So we've left that kind of up to the potential for condominiumizing the building. That's been done in other low-income housing projects that I am aware of, has been done in order to provide that non-residential component. Once the building is constructed, Lehigh will have the obligation to maintain the building and the site in good repair throughout the course of the lease. There are the potential for leasehold mortgages on the site, which would be pledging Lehigh's leasehold interest in the site to the lenders who are providing financing for the project. We have provided that we are not mortgaging the city's fee interest in the site, the underlying interest in the site, but they can mortgage the leasehold interest in the site, which they will be required to execute leasehold mortgages for the tax credit investors. All of the units will be required to be affordable, and there are provisions in the lease that require those to be affordable for the term of the lease. There are some restrictions, as I understand it. If we're starting out with the idea that it's going to be an average of 60% AMI, and that is to be the case as the average throughout the course of the lease. There are some provisions in the financing that allow people, as they gain more income, as residents gain more income, to continue to stay there. So there will be some who will exceed the 60% AMI at some point. And there may even be some that might get up to 120% of AMI, because under some of the restrictions, those tenants cannot be removed or told their leases can't be terminated until at that level. But because the lease and the regulatory provisions of it require that that there be an average of 60% AMI, that means that some other units within the project will have to be rented at lower rates than that in order to make the average work. And so that's how it's been structured. And then there are just sort of some standard boilerplate provisions about liens, indemnity, insurance provisions, and so forth. The one I did want to highlight was that the city will have no responsibility and no authority to resolve disputes between the tenants and Lehigh. We will not be getting in the middle of those disputes. That's entirely up to them. And we provided for that specifically in the lease document. So that's the highlights of the development agreement and the lease. The idea, I think, is to enter into the development agreement here shortly. It's up to you as to when you take it forward. The term sheet that we executed with Lehigh says that it is to be entered into by June 30th. And I'm sure that they would like to get it entered into so that they can proceed with their financing and design and have that certainty. But that's the process from here on in.
Thank you, City Manager.
No, thank you. And again, I just, to reiterate what the attorney said, would like respond to any questions council would have. And then we would envision that this would be back before you on May 13th for approval.
Thank you. Councilmember Morawaki.
And thank you, Mayor Matthews, and thank you, City Attorney, for your presentation and high points. I really appreciate the last point in particular, that the Low Income Housing Institute will be responsible for structure, even though it's on city land, that we are not going to intervene on any kind of the management or maintenance or whatever that is involved with that structure once it's finally constructed. Pardon me. And I'm glad you did it as an overview because it's a 36-page document. I suggest you probably spend a billable hour just reading it, but I did. It didn't take an hour. I read it. But your analysis, a lot of stuff is, I wouldn't say boilerplate, but very, very typical language between governments and private entities of the what the authorizations are, what the expectations are, responsibilities, deliverables. It's laid out as well as I can tell in this project. And then on page 3 and 4 is the budget. And there are 7 sources that are in this $49 million plus budget. And they're us, City of Bainbridge Island, we're doing the land, Washington State, Kitsap County, permanent debt from a bank, investor in Washington State Housing and Finance Commission, the deferred developer fee, and the private loan. And I just want to draw attention to the council that the 2 highest are the investor Washington State Housing and Finance Commission at 18 million, almost 19 million, and Washington State at 11. And also Kitsap County is in at least budgeted here for about $750,000. I'm sad now because I haven't looked at my phone since I got in here, but something else has probably happened. It's messed up the future crystal ball finances of our country and world. So this is the projected budget that the Low Income Housing Institute will consider. We don't know what those variables are. I don't know how much of the state funding is also from federal funding and that uncertainty. Also, the costs of materials. It's already the business industry and developer industry is in such flux because they're so uncertain about the cost of materials and labor and all of these issues, especially at the national. I mean, construction companies are so concerned because the majority of their labor is migrant workers and they're not showing up for fear of being deported. So this is all happening. This is going to be 3 years down the road, hopefully, or before that. But there's a lot of uncertainty and people look at the headlines. I'm feeling it in this project. That kind of stuff that's happening internationally and nationally is going to affect this budget. And it's this project, and we should be aware of that. Perhaps I've already written the contract, but maybe an inflationary cost or something like that. I don't know if that's necessary, but if there's going to be some of those fees that are going to come back to the city, I hope that our budget is flexible enough, just like we did with the groundwater management study, to do some of those other requirements that we're going to be asking of this developer to do. But we really should be prudent. And I'd like to remind my colleagues that our balanced budget was on a razor, under $200,000 surplus. So we were right on the cusp. I'm glad we were responsible, being the only government within our region to be balanced. And I give a lot of credit to the city manager and our Dwayne Pitts, our finance director, and the rest for doing that. And a lot of delayed costs, of which I would like to see, like more police and more planners to get those permits out faster. But I think we as a council decided we wanted to be fiscally responsible. And the fact that we kept our entire reserve with what's been happening in the last 3 months, I think that was probably one of the smartest things we ever did, because we do have a backstop. So those are my thoughts on that. But Jim, thank you for this. It's well written, and I'm not an attorney, but I understood most of it. So I appreciate that. And I'm so looking forward to seeing the progress with the Low Income Housing Institute. I'm really excited to finally get this thing off the ground.
Thank you, Councilmember Morawaki. Councilmember Dietz.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I have a few things to say, and then I'm happy to make the motion. And yeah, thank you for coming. Very much appreciate it. And, I echo Councilmember Moriwaki's comments. The only certainty we have these days is uncertainty. So, but I will look at number 2 of our council priorities is affordable housing. So I'll just say, I think all of us are dedicated to finding a way to do this project because we just have to, I feel. We have an obligation to do so. All right. Oh, I did have a question, sorry. For the management of the commercial site on the ground floor, I know there was a conversation we had about maybe who may do that. Pardon me, I didn't look at your document, but does the city have a say in who's chosen to manage the commercial space?
Through the chair, at this point, yes, because it's undefined whether it's going to be a community space or commercial space. Staff has made some contact with commercial potential brokers, developers. I'm anticipating over the next month at least one proposal back to us that would share with Lehigh on that. But as we have said, the range right now is everything from retail space to community childcare space. And that's a piece that will become, we hope, and that's probably, in this entire project, that is the biggest variable that's approximately 3,500 square feet, and what the use will be there is probably the most variable unknown that we have in this entire project. I would say most of the pressure is going to be on Lehigh to get financing. They're very good at doing that. That's why one of the big reasons they were selected. And also just people have asked the 3 million from the city is coming from a dedicated affordable housing source. It's 1% on sales tax. It could only be used for affordable housing. It does not compete with the general fund at all. And that's how much we have anticipated we will collect to the time of commencement of construction.
Yeah, great, thank you. Particularly that last point that $3 million is being spent specifically for what its purpose was. So thank you for that clarification, City Manager. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. I move to bring the Low Income Housing Institute LIHI or Lehigh Development Agreement to a future business meeting for consideration of approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. We do have still some discussion. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. So I too want to just say how grateful I am that we're moving this forward. I also want to just remind my colleagues that we still have some role to play here too, which is to say that there's some land use issues that need to get put in place before this project can move forward. And I'm hoping that we can do those in a way that applies, much more generally. So I'm hoping we'll get there, but we have to move quickly.
Thank you, Councilmember Schneider. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I've learned a lot from the ground that we've covered already, and I think it's been very well prepared for. With respect to the ground floor space and the decision-making and planning that will go into that over time, I just want to remind people that from the very beginning, the Race Equity Advisory Committee has taken an interest in this project. 2 members of the committee participated in our visit in Seattle to other Lehigh projects. And 1 member of the committee prepared a message to the council dated February 22nd of this year, speaking to an interest in the envisioning and planning and seeking opportunities for the best of that ground floor. So that's going to be part of among our considerations, not determinative, but kind of advisory and stimulating the process. Lynn Beck, a member of the committee, has a lot of experience in this area, and talking with her in the course of that visit to the Seattle properties, and also hearing her in discussions in the committee meetings. It's an important voice for us to consider.
Thanks so much, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for making the trip over. Did you have anything to say, or did you want to say any? I feel like since you made the trip over, if that's okay, Council. Hello.
Good evening, council members. My name is John Grant. For the record, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the Low Income Housing Institute. And as just a point of privilege, I want to mention that I'm also a BHS alum of class 2000.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Hailing from Baker Hill, my mom and dad are still there. I also used to work on Bainbridge Island, serving you coffee at Blackbird Bakery. So I'm a worker here. So this project is very personal to me. I really appreciate the support of the city council. I think it speaks to the values of us as Islanders, and it's a delight that I get to say us. So I thank you for your consideration in this proposal. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, we're here to support this process and appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well now so my comments were that I was going to say how even in these times of uncertainty, as Councilmember Murawaki was saying, that we have Lehigh to guide us through this, and we probably have the best folks for getting through this sort of scenario. So that I'm very, very encouraged by that. And then as far as the ground floor, that's going to be, I think, when we went to the visit, they had a lot of nonprofits or sort of partnerships that were on ground floors. So when I've been thinking about this, and I think Councilmember Dietz, we had spoken about this too, is like approaching maybe the Suquamish tribe. So I've put a bug in Leonard's ear, so we'll see. Approaching the Suquamish tribe and Port Madison Enterprises for either a partnership with a childcare facility or like a welcome center for the area. So I will let Blair know. I will clue him in when we hear back anything on that. And then my parents live up Baker Hill too. So, and I think that is really important just as our community, just to know that there's someone with a Bainbridge tie. As minimal as that would seem, it's huge here. So thank you so much.
The last point I just want to make, it was mentioned, the council's aware, but I just want to make sure that it's explicit. This project is dependent upon a FAR of about 2.50. The current maximum allowed FAR on the site is 0.50. So there would be consideration to change there. The height, majority of the building is 45 feet to the flat roof. The parapet is at 49 feet, but this is on a warped plane. And apparently I just found it the way we calculate warped planes, in that we have point A, point B, and we divide it, and that would put us over the 45 feet with that method of calculation. So I just want to be transparent as I can, is that this project depends for some of those accommodations.
Thank you, City. First we'll do Councilmember Fancher Johnson, because she hasn't spoken, then Councilmember Schneider.
No, I was ready to vote.
Okay, Councilmember Schneider.
I think also parking is an issue. Is that right? We have decisions to make about
height, FAR, and
Well,
parking.
the parking currently is accommodated at our standard. However, there's currently legislation that appears to pass, that will pass. As you know, the budget hasn't passed. We have about $5 million from the state coming from a transit-oriented development account, TOD. And the state legislature require that jurisdictions within TOD planning areas give an allowance for parking. So that may be required of us, but also typically the affordable housing development sources, the little saying is they provide housing for people, not for cars. And so sometimes the cars are excluded from the contributions and they have to be paid for separately. And we think that there is some good empirical documentation for reducing parking standards for a 100% affordable housing project.
Thank you so much. Okay, we had a motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, City Manager and City Attorney. Okay, and thank you. All right, next is receiving our monthly update on the comprehensive plan and Winslow subarea plan from Director Charnas.
Yes, first of all, the council's been able to review the written memorandum for the agenda. Subsequent to staff preparing this
memorandum, we've had an opportunity to consider other options. And for this meeting, we will not be making any recommendation for council action. We will be making none. Although you will get a presentation on the concept or what we would like to put forward for the affordable housing overlay zone. Patty Charnas and H.B. Harper will be presenting that. We have no recommendation for you. The Planning Commission, as I understand, and it will be explained further, is considering this. So no further charge from the council is required for that. And we think it's premature to talk about any additional expenses. However, upon the conclusion of Patty Charnas and H.B. Harper's presentation, I would like the city attorney to talk a little bit about the necessity for documentation that we would have as we may have a challenge before the Growth Management Board or make a presentation to the Management Board with regard to being able to validate that we will be meeting our HB 1220 obligations or HR HB 1220 obligations. So with that, the Planning Department.
Thank you very much, City Manager Patty Charnas, Planning and Community Development. As many of you have learned, my wonderful planning manager, H.B. Harper, has accepted a position with the city of Seattle. So it was the city manager's idea, and I thought it was a great idea to bring HB here to give the monthly update and an opportunity for you to say goodbye. HB?
Thank you, H.B. Harper, Planning Manager, with my swan song, the monthly update on the Winslow-Severia Plan and the Comprehensive Plan update. So, as you know, the Planning Commission has been meeting both at regularly scheduled meetings and additionally at special meetings. And we are very pleased with the progress they've made. They've been diligent and thoughtful and very thorough. There is still ways to go. So I'll just briefly summarize the work they've been doing. So they have come to preliminary recommendations on an outer working boundary for the Winslow sub-area as a whole, as well as those densest zones that we call the FAR-based zones, the floor ratio-based urban zones, such as Ferry and Core on the south end, High School Road on the north end, and the areas in between, which staff have been referring to as transition. And I think the Planning Commission is now calling Madison Ferncliff. So that's an incredible amount of progress. They've also begun working on zoning district boundaries for the residential-based zones that are just around those FAR-based zones, but that work has just begun. So there are still quite a few TBDs in their map. The red color on the map is where they've started talking about some TBDs to be determined. So it's actually not a planning acronym. So there's still a bit there. And what they have not yet tackled for any of these zones are those key development standards of height limits and density allowances. And as you know, those are the key inputs to enable city staff and consultants to run the land capacity analysis that is required under the Growth Management Act for incorporation in our land use and housing elements of our comprehensive plan. So those are the really key pieces of information that allow us to move forward with updating those elements. They have also come to a recommendation thus far on what tools they would like to recommend the city employ for affordable housing. So I know the council has expressed some interest in the affordable housing overlay zone concept, and that I provide some helpful information in the packet for your awareness about it. I think I will say that for staff, I think we see it as a very interesting tool that may differ somewhat from what we already have studied or what we've taken a look at through our housing action plan. We do think fundamentally it appears to be a bonus density type program, which is not an unfamiliar mechanism here. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about some of the information in the packet. But with that, I would just take a minute to say thank you and to really congratulate you all on doing such hard work. I know the planning stuff is really, it's tough, and we're in a really interesting spot, and you all take it really seriously and care really deeply, and that's very evident. So thank you for that. And you have a really great team here in the staff and the Planning Commission. I have to compliment you on your Planning Commission appointees. They're just the best appointed people I've ever worked with. And they're really, you're in really good hands working together with them. So kudos and thank you. And it's been a pleasure serving you as planning manager.
Okay, we'll start down the line. Councilmember Schneider.
Oh, wow. Okay, I wasn't the first one to put my light on, but I'm ready. So first just say I was shocked and appalled to hear that we'd be losing HB, but I won't be losing her because she's my neighbor. So yay for me. Anyway, yes, I am so appreciative for just the basic communication skills you've used over time with us, just making it sound clear and making sense just in general, which oftentimes it doesn't. But what I wanted to share with folks was some ideas that I tried to put down into an email that I put out to you all just at the very last minute today. So I don't expect any studied it or to understand it. I'm not even sure I understand it myself. But given of our time crunch, I did have a chance to talk with Sarah Blossom. So these have been kind of shared with her. And if we do get to a point where we feel like we understand them well enough and are willing to suggest that the Planning Commission could consider them. I don't by any means suggest that we should impose them on the Planning Commission. Then, there's one voice that has had a long conversation, but just one, with me ahead of this. So first of all, with the overlay zone concept, I wanted to ask, this is a question, whether it is, how does it differ from, for instance, our HDDP program? And I clarified with the planning director today that yes, that program is still in effect. It didn't sunset or it just looks that way on the website. So HDDP is one of those things that allows a bonus density if you meet certain criteria, if you're in the certain area and you have a certain amount of affordable housing within certain limits. So how does that, how might that differ from or be similar to an overlay zone? And then another question that just occurred to me in just the last hour or so is, does HDDP apply right now to 625? And does that take care of at least the FAR portion of the project? So that doesn't have to be answered tonight, but it just occurred to me like, wait a minute, maybe we have something like an overlay zone already. So that's my question is, how might HDDP relate to an overlay zone? And if so, maybe and just redefine HDDP in a way that modernizes it for what we need right now. Maybe we give it a new name and upgrade its branding. But then the other idea that's probably going to strike us as being strange is that if we say that we really do want developers to help us create, I'm going to say affordable housing in quotes, because otherwise I'll get in trouble. But if we talk about it as being potentially at least middle income affordable, then we could, if we get developers to do that, and I think that developers ought to be able to do that with, sharpening their pencils and making it work and still making a profit, then we could, with other forms of subsidy, with other funds available, we could go to, once units become available at, let's say, 120 to 150% AMI, then we could say, all right, we've got additional money to subsidize them being taken into a 60% or an 80% level. And so we get to kind of fill in for these 1220 requirements that we have. So this would kind of simplify and make possible some actual development that would make units available. So that's the general piece. I think there's a little more detail in there, but I wanted to throw it out as a way of saying we want to be careful not to put too much burden on developers, because if it does pencil, if we miss the mark, then nothing will get built. And to me, that is the worst case scenario, because we will just continue to lose our middle income folks. We will have a trickle of very low income housing at 60% and below, because every, 5 or 10 years, that's what we build another, 625 project or something like that. So I'll be quiet now, but I might jump in again later.
Thank you. Councilmember Morwaki.
Councilmember Final Johnson was first, so I'll defer to her.
Yes, I'm crying over here. I just wanted to, I don't know, just say thank you, and I will ask you offline some things. But I've enjoyed your presence, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Councilmember Morwaki.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is rarely used a point of personal privilege, but I would like to ask our officer to block the door, not allow her to leave this building if she changes her mind. No, you've been a joy, HB. And it's not just your professionalism and understanding, it's your demeanor and how you are so approachable and communicate well with our constituents and staff. Just makes you exemplary employee, and I can see why Seattle would want you. But you should go to guard the door still. So on this other part, we have maybe we're on this and we can talk about this later, but the housing design demonstration project, inclusionary zoning programs, there may be just similar phrases for the same kind of objective. And so perhaps you have just redefine how these work. I think the project is like project specific, whereas an overlay zone is sending the intention that this is the area where these projects are all available, regardless of the lot. That's how I'm seeing what Deputy Mayor Quitland's suggestion was. And I think also the density bonuses and the rest that was discussed by Commissioner Sarah Blossom email to us. It's thank Commissioner Blossom for it's well written, and also to my colleague to my right, Councilmember Scheider, for your email. Really thoughtful things to consider. But what can we do to keep you here?
Councilmember Dietz.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mayor Matthews and HB Harper. Thank you for coming to see us. And you're dressed very cheerful, but you didn't even have to, you could have been dressed in black and we'd be cheered up, Hey, Patty. Yeah. But seriously, it was the city's, it was our privilege to have you work with, to have you work with us. How am I trying to say this? And I'm not surprised that you got snatched by that big city over there. So best of luck. Thank you so very much for your dedication, your professionalism. We are better as a city from the work that you have done. As terms of what we're talking about here, I don't see a motion that we're going to present. At least I will see. We're still talking, but I fully trust what the Planning Commission is doing. I communicate with Sarah Blossom, for example, and I think they're on a path to getting a good result here. So I would prefer to let them continue to do the work. They do listen to us. I think we're going to get there. And so let's have some faith on that. And again, thank you so much for your service.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot that I won't be able to say, just the words won't take shape, but I have had many privileged moments there and some intense connecting with both of our leaders from the planning staff. And I've also been attending the Planning Commission meetings. I feel myself not one among them, but with the same swirl of possibilities and uncertainties and a need to cover every base, consider every possibility. So we do have, with the Planning Commission, a sense of direction and a high sense of purpose, and it will gel eventually. It will come together because the talents on tap are really extraordinary. It's just, I'm imagining something that hasn't happened yet. And I do regard it with, kind of cautious optimism, and just hoping for a coming together around certain principles and abilities. I think I want to go back to Councilmember Schneider's remarks about the housing design demonstration program, all the projects that have come out of that. In a recent communication with Planning Director Charnas and HB Harper, I said, I'll just use the acronym HDDP, that's our Cinderella. And the HDDP, that's a worn out garment. We've got to get beyond that. We should develop a frame of reference and a concept for a program that builds upon what our experience and our familiarity with the opportunities that the housing demonstration project has made real for us. We need a housing design program that addresses our need for a diversity of housing types for the diversity of our population, current population and our future population that we have not been able to accommodate. And I do see that happening with Winslow at the center of it. We just have to listen to one another, interact, and make it happen. And I think the listening to one another needs to include, it already has to some extent included, professionals in our community who know things on the ground that we are only guessing at and trying to work with. That opening up to our broader community as well, the people who are doubters, who don't share all the knowledge and all the assumptions and ideals that I think we're working with. It is remarkable that even in a very conflicted environment, we have a planning commission that is singular in its sense of purpose, really dedicated and working together. I think the council also is we don't all share the same body of knowledge, but we are devoted to reaching our goals. And I'm very optimistic about that. Our comprehensive plan uses the word reconcile, reconciling development and conservation. We see that happening around the island. It's not that it's a dream, but that reconciliation needs to be our sense of purpose, I believe. Reconciling the diversity of opinion within our population here is part of it. So that's kind of where I think we're going. And I know, HB, you'll still be part of the community here, and some impromptu and informal and unplanned communication is going to help us a lot, I believe, going forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll start with the business end of this. I think that the affordable housing overlay and all of the other HDDP they're all tools. And I think our planning commission well-versed at tools and researching tools. And I think they'll be able to take all of the information we've given them, and they're working through this. So I think that's good to know. If we want to call HDDP something else to make it cool again, go for, but it's a tool at our disposal. Speaking of planning commission, I know coming up on the agenda on May 13th, we'll be talking about trying to keep some of their current members, so there's continuity as they get through this process. And I think those members are important to keep. And HB, I am so sorry to see you go. I knew it was only a matter of time because of the folks who would come up to me at meetings and just sing your praises, literally since the day you got here. And so it was one of these things, I knew that we were going to have you for a fleeting moment, but it was going to be a moment that we'll never forget. And that's what's happened. And you've made you put your prints all over this stuff, and it's in a great way. Our community will never be the same. I could not have imagined going through this process of the sub-area plan and the comp plan without you, without your input. It's going to be tough seeing your Batman without Robin. I mean, but I know, but it will be great to see you around town and just get to laugh and enjoy each other's company and not be like, oh. So I hope Seattle treats you really, really well. I know you will do great things for their city, and please don't be a stranger. And with that, I think that's it. Thank you. And Councilmember Scher had a couple questions that were.
Well, it dealt with the HDDP, and I don't know if any more of a response is needed at this point in time, other than HDDP is site specific, project by project. And it's my understanding that the possibility of the overlay zone is that it would apply to a general area and versus a site specific. Also, just in terms of questions, Runbauer is aware of the HDDP program. Runbauer Architects is Lehigh's architect. Fun fact, actually, Lehigh is technically the name of Low Income Housing Institute, so it's not an acronym. They are aware, but as we have worked through this, they became aware that in play, there's the possibility that the land use for the area in which 625 Winslow is located would have a height at 65 feet and the FAR exceeding 2.50. If given the choice, they would rather rely upon that as an entitlement than going through the HDDP process. So when that discussion occurred, the prospects of those development standards being in place by the middle of the year was the possibility. We don't think that'll happen now. So some other considerations may be required as we get late into 2025.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay, with the next agenda item is consider ordinance 2025-13 related to unlisted land uses, also planning.
Yeah, and we would be happy to give the council presentation. The council received a presentation on March 25th on the unlisted land uses. Upon the conclusion of the presentation at the time, the council wanted to make sure that a full council is present before they advance to a subsequent council meeting. Interestingly enough, it was recommended that this be considered on April 22nd. As fate would have it, the same council member is not present at this meeting too, but I will tell you, has assured me that it would be her preference that the council would go ahead and proceed and not be delayed. With that, the planning director can offer a brief presentation of what the unlisted land use proposal is.
Thank you, City Manager. And rather than present the slideshow, because you all really appreciate it and seem to understand it. Again, Patty Charnas, Planning and Community Development, before you tonight, as it was in March 25th, is a request to forward to the Planning Commission a proposed ordinance that addresses unlisted uses by proposing a new mechanism whereby unlisted uses would go through a process that has more public visibility and input to it, and that the Planning Commission can work together to decide a course of permitting path for unlisted uses. They are few and far between. They're not very common. However, we believe this responds to an overall desire to have more transparency, public input when it comes to unlisted uses. So the motion before you is to recommend that the Planning Commission take this on, hold a public hearing, and come back with a recommendation as to the proposed ordinance that it was and still is in relation to this proposed unlisted use process. Now, that's the business portion of my presentation. And with this, you all know, but no more than anybody else is the poignant loss that I'm about to experience. I've never had the pleasure of working with such a good coworker as H.B. Harper. To be honest, she's always been the one to help plump up my presentations for you. So, you know, and then there was a reference to Cinderella. And so for now, my chariot and beautiful horse-drawn carriage and my glass slippers are turning back into the pumpkin and the mice. And we'll carry on, but certainly not as elegantly or high quality and productive work that HB has been able to supply to you all and me. So I look forward to your action on this item, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, HB. Councilmember Morwalki and then Councilmember Fancher Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. And just to the final comment, I thought you were first Batman, so I'm really confused on the metaphors here. Is the Planning Commission aware this is coming forward? Just make sure that we're not throwing something in that, you know, they aren't anticipating. I trust that they are aware that this could be a possible future agenda item for them.
I think from body language, we don't know for sure, but again, the outline of what the proposed ordinance is that the current system, we have a listing of land uses. If a applicant comes forward with a use that's not on that list, it goes to the planning director to make determination. What we're proposing is an alternative separate application process in which the request for the planning commission can determine that it's a use similar enough to existing uses, or if it's not a use similar enough to existing use, require new zoning, and they would go through that process. That's what we're proposing with this. And in terms of the amount of heavy lifting, the ordinance has basically been drafted, and it's relatively simple and straightforward in its approach.
Yeah, I read it and I like the ideas. I just am sensitive because they are doing the yeoman's effort on our comprehensive plan. And I'll just point out to I really like, let's see, item 2, review and determination by the planning commission. And the new rule would be to review the unlisted use for consistency with the comp plan. And I really like this, determine whether the unlisted use can fall into these categories. Permitted, P is permitted, conditional is C, accessory is A, conditional accessory is C, A, and temporary is T, or perhaps it should be prohibited. And I think that's so much more precise than all these conditional uses. Conditional uses sounds like, you know, all sorts of different kind of conditioners. What do you use in the shower? Which is it? This is much more defined. I think when you see this being used, that the public and the individual know that this is a accessory dwelling unit, or it's a you know, some sort of industrial use or retail use that's put inside of a residential area. I just think that's whoever came up with the idea, I think is a good idea.
Thank you, Councilmember Fancher Johnson.
I move to direct the Planning Commission hold a public hearing on the proposal to amend Bainbridge Island's Municipal Code Section 18.09.005 and Section 2.16 related to unlisted uses.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Fancher Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Morowaki. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. And thank you for I think that is well-founded concern about Planning Commission. The good thing is that these unlisted uses are pretty rare. The last one that brought all this up was the crematorium, we remember. And Commissioner Rolfes talking about when she was on council ages ago, there was a racy one, but I don't know quite what the unlisted use was, right? Yeah, so okay, next on the agenda is consider ordinance number 2025-12.
Mayor, we're going to have something that has not occurred in the 4 years that I've been here. Christine Brown is going to come out behind her station and she's going to stand in front of you. She is going to show you that she has a second half of her body.
Well, with that, good evening, Council. Christine Brown, City Clerk and Public Records Officer. This is a housekeeping item to amend the public records disclosure chapter in the city's code. The city maintains a separate set of administrative rules that are updated from time to time to incorporate changes in the Public Records Act and best practices. The code, on the other hand, has not been updated since 2011. We are recommending removing conflicting provisions from the code to ensure our policies do not become outdated and fall behind court and state directives. The recommended action is to move this forward to the next business meeting to consider adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fantroy Johnson, or Councilmember Morawaki, I can't see who's first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Matthews. And I did read it, and it's smart to do this. It's what's that, 13 years or so. It's really important to be compliant with state law. I like the idea of being compliant with state law. I'm glad we haven't been caught up in someone getting getting into the weeds going, well, you're not, that record request is allowed by state law and you're not doing it, or vice versa. So it's really a smart move to do this, and I'll move it for discussion. I move to forward ordinance number 2025-12 to the May 13, 2025 consent agenda for approval.
I second.
Motion made by Councilmember Morawaki, seconded by Councilmember Fairtroy Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Was there any more discussion?
I just want to make a comment. We've been talking about Cinderella here. This is housekeeping. We should do housekeeping a little more often.
We'll invite you to the prom, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you so much, City Clerk, for that. And last but not least, designate a council member to attend the annual Puget Sound Energy Check-in meeting on May 15th.
Thank you, Mayor. I hesitate to use the word annual for the very first, but we have our first structured meeting with Puget Sound Energy related to the provisions of an MOU that was adopted in October of 24. When the council considered or first presented the franchise agreement with Puget Sound Energy, there were a variety of topics that were brought up from principally the Climate Change Advisory Committee that they requested that PSC engage in. PSC, we could not incorporate some of the suggestions in the franchise agreement, but we did incorporate a second companion agreement, an MOU, to the franchise agreement. The MOU requires an annual meeting with PSC. That annual meeting has been scheduled now for May 15th at 1 o'clock. We would like a council member to sit in on that meeting, along with a member of the council that we are a member of the Climate Change Advisory Committee and the Utility Advisory Committee, along with city staff.
Thank you. I would like to attend that meeting, but that was the date, I believe Chief Clark said that would be the commemoration event for fallen officers in Bremerton. So I want to attend that. Is there anyone who would like to attend this? Deputy Mayor?
I move to designate Councilmember Joe Dietz to attend the annual Puget Sound Energy Check-in meeting on May 15th.
A second.
Motion has been made by Deputy Mayor Quitzlin, seconded by Councilmember Fantroy Johnson. All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right.
Thank you, folks.
Seeing no more lights and having business, this meeting is adjourned.